You should not know this.
True or not true? Ted Braden legitimately earned the money that paid for his penthouse.
I lean not true on that one. Yeah, I think partially might be the word I might use, but yeah.
So how'd he come about it then?
I mean, we know he had some money saved up from Vietnam, perhaps. He had side hustles here and there, but he clearly had something that was a bit more than a side hustle. I mean, we know he was a commercial truck driver during this time, so he had an income there. I did look up how much a commercial truck driver averaged in 1971, and at least according to Business Insider, it ranged between $9,000 and $12,000 a year, which in today's money is about $75,000 to $100,000 a year. So, it was decent money back then. It was, a solid middle class job, but he was living more upper class than middle class. So that suggests to me that there was probably something coming from the outside. He might have been earning on the higher end of that spectrum, though, because PPG, their workforce was largely unionized, and union workers did earn more, of course. But from all accounts, especially
stepdaughter.
Yeah, she herself didn't know what was paying for everything. I mean, it seemed like there was a mismatch between their occupations and the possessions they had and the money they were spending. So where it was coming from, well, we can suppose, but we don't know for sure, do we?
Times have changed a little bit too. I mean, back then, if you were employed, almost any kind of employed, you could have a house, you could have a car, and you could take a vacation every year. And that isn't the case anymore. You need 4 jobs to maybe rent an apartment, have a beater car, and you definitely are not going on vacation. So.
That is true.
Drew, what do you think about that money? How do you pay for that penthouse? Where'd the money come from?
Wherever it came from, it was ill-gotten, because we know that much about him and his whole life. When he borrowed money from people, he would never pay it back. He would borrow money from his grandfather during certain periods. He was cut out of his own mother's will, which was, from what I know, fairly substantial. But he was cut out of it because of all the times he would borrow and not pay back. So he never had enough. Whatever he had was never enough, but yet he could still float the lifestyle he wanted, the Mercedes-Benz, the penthouse. And she was clear about that. It wasn't just a nicer apartment on an upper floor. She was clear of using the phrase penthouse, where they were living in the early 70s in Chicago. So I was very careful to make sure I was getting the right word, because, penthouse to me, I used to valet cars back in the day at a high-rise apartment building, and it had the top 3 floors we called penthouses. That's where the elevator would open up and you had the entire floor. One was this really weird couple that was family descendants from Galveston, Texas, one of the big names from there, Stewart. There's a beach there called Stewart Beach, and there were descendants of the Stewart family, old money. And these people had the penthouse. The elevator would open up in their apartment. The elevator, you're right there. We'd help take the groceries up. And these people were really weird. They had no furniture. They just had like this exercise machine and like a card table. It's like, and they drove this beater car, but they had all the money in the world to pay for this penthouse. They were just really weird people. But when I hear penthouse, that means to me full floor of a building. I mean, like large apartment, 3,500 feet plus apartment. So he had the money somewhere where he's able to make the payments. And from the one letter we have from him, we know he was a pretty good stickler about paying his bills on time. So he had a good steady flow of money coming from somewhere. The truck driving job, like Ian stated, was decent, but not enough to cover things like his stepdaughter made clear, like they would go to fancy restaurants more often than not. Both drove Mercedes-Benz. Very, very fastidious dresser, Ted was, and would always wear nice clothing when he was not driving his truck. He was wearing, nice suits and shoes and everything that went with it, and had accounts at department stores, as we know. We have a name of at least one of them. I know that. So it was ill-gotten wherever it came from. It was ill-gotten gain, and it was more than even a long haul truck driver even getting overtime could cover, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was a big earner, but he was even bigger of a spender. Definitely.
Good way of saying it.
Do we know if his wife was having any income at this time?
Oh, man, it really gets complicated. I am in contact with wife 3's second cousin, who lived and still lives in that area. And she remembers them living there at the time. So they were there. They were there late 60s, early 70s. Ted drove a big blue car. That's a fact. This isn't in the main episode. She thought Ted owned the local truck stop. And I know you were going to bring that up, Drew. You were going to say that wife 3 worked at the truck stop.
Correct.
And she may have. I mean, nobody knows, including this second cousin. Her second cousin doesn't remember if she worked there back then.
That's interesting because I obviously know the truck stop. Mm-hmm. And I've never, we know the name of the family that owned it, but it was kind of a weird arrangement, even with the family, about the building and the land. And, I think it got a little convoluted, but we know the name of the family that is mainly associated with owning that truck stop in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah. But we're talking about Chicago, and that would have been back in the Mon Valley. So she was not working at the truck stop in Chicago at the time. Did she have another job? It doesn't sound like it, because when you read the letter, it sounds like she's interested in getting a job, or maybe was looking for a job, or maybe got a job, and he didn't like that. You guys remember that, correct?
Yeah. Now you are now a liberated woman, he said.
Yeah. The money and where it came from, I did a little homework recently on that. So Ted was in, Drew, if you know that some of these numbers are off, point it out, because I just Googled. But 23 months in Vietnam doing what Ted was doing, I think he earned up to $20,000, probably not $20,000, between 15 and 20, maybe 16, 17 in those 23 months. And to give you some kind of a scale, $20,000 back then is $200,000 today.
For Vietnam?
Yeah.
That can't be right.
Well, here's what I came up with. I looked up what a MACV-SOG soldier would make. And it was between $400 and $800 per month, which ironically is what a penthouse in Chicago would cost. Exactly. And so it said the pay was determined by your experience. And Ted was on top of that, right? So I put him at $800 a month. And if you run those numbers, that's close to $20,000. I don't know if it's right, but the bare numbers, that's what it gives you.
And in Ramparts, didn't he mention he was making $800 a month in Vietnam? Or
I think he did. That's a good point.
So if that's true, I mean,
I've got it here. That's why he wanted to leave. And I do remember his colleague saying, we didn't make anything. Didn't say an amount, but really wanted to be low.
Here's the quote here. I like the first class thing, but it's not possible on $800 a month. So, yeah. So,
there you go.
That wasn't enough for him, apparently, still, but yeah.
Even with the black market.
Assuming that he didn't spend any of that in Vietnam, he came home with close to $20,000, $15,000 to $20,000, which is close to $200,000 in cash. Let's just say that is true. It may not be. Everyone listening, that may not be true. That's what I came up with running the numbers. But now let's look at what he had to pay for. I already mentioned the Chicago penthouse is going to be $400 to $800 a month. But we have word that he had 2 Mercedes-Benz vehicles. So let's do this. How much was a new Mercedes-Benz in 1970? And the answer...
We're witnessing that investigation live right here.
They would start at about $5,000, but I don't see Ted buying the cheapest Mercedes. Do you?
No.
So let's say they both had $10,000 Mercedes. Well, there goes all the money. Now, how are you paying for the penthouse? Now, back to the penthouse. It's, let's say, $400 to $800. You're looking at anywhere from 24 to maybe 54 months of penthouse rent. So if Ted came out of Vietnam with $20,000 in cash, equivalent to $200,000 in today's money. Let's say the Mercedes didn't count because he made payments and that wasn't taking out of his lump sum. But he did have to make penthouse rent payments. So if you only have 24 to 54 months of rent, do you step into that? I mean, you've just worked 2 years, put your life on the line to earn that money. Are you going to blow it in as little as 2 years on rent? I don't know if he'd make that choice. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he could have extended that by working the trucking job, and that could have, even if it didn't suffice in the long term, it could have extended his ability to rent a penthouse for a year or two more, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's not a sustainable thing financially, and to walk into that and commit to that, and it doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. I mean, but he wasn't the most long-term thinking fellow we know too. I don't know.
So how much did a Consolidated Freightways union driver make in Chicago in 1972? 10 to 13,000 is what I got. Is that, you got about 12, is that right?
Yeah, I got 9 to 12, but yeah.
That would be on top of the lump sum. I don't know. I'm personally not going to take that risk with my limited lump sum of cash, blowing it on rent in as little as 2 years.
Yeah, I think he would be a little more, not frugal, but just mindful of where the money was going, especially, so hard earned, even if it's ill-gotten, he would have been a little better with managing it, because he seems in the letter that he's pretty concerned about, I don't know, for lack of a better word, credit, making sure that apartment stores are paid off and everything like that. So he sounds like he was mindful of keeping the bills paid.
Yeah.
So leaving the Mon Valley, nobody knows why. If you came into a lot of money, and I'm from a small town, I'm from what the equivalent of the Mon Valley. And if I came into a whole lot of money and needed to hide it, obviously not spending it is one good way to do that. But there is no way to hide newfound cash in a small town. If you're going to spend it, you need to have your car and you need to have a place to live. And if you want to use that money, you can't hide it in a small town. Could that explain the move to Chicago?
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be easier to blend in Chicago if you're wealthy, because especially if you move into a wealthy neighborhood, I mean, you just might be another one of the Joneses that has nice things on your block, and people wouldn't maybe think twice. But you're in a small town, and if you start spending that money and have a $20,000 Mercedes parked out front, people are going to start wondering why.
How could he legitimately have come upon that money? I mean, he could have worked overtime. He could have saved it. Could have all been on credit cards. The wife maybe had a job. It's really hard to come up with an answer that makes sense where that money came from.
He liked the finer things.
Yeah.
If he did have the money to begin with, it would have meant that he was just blowing it all really fast. And that doesn't seem like something an adult would do,
So what happened to the money? Did he blow through it? Maybe he did. Maybe what we've been talking about is what happened. Maybe he made a lot of money in Vietnam. He came home and blew it within a few years.
Oh, sure.
Possible.
Maybe he blew it through the 1970s. Maybe it lasted all the way through the 1970s, and that is how we ended up with the 1979 crime spree.
Needed to replenish it.
Sure. I mean, you go from a penthouse and Mercedes to a crime spree. And here he is, a 50-year-old guy. Think about this. How old? Somebody knows. How old was he when he got out of Fort Dix?
I would say 38, 39.
He hadn't committed any major felonies up to that point in his life. Is that correct?
That we know of, that's correct.
That is correct. I mean, there's the friendly guy, but, that's more of a wartime situation than just a civilian thing.
That's true. He did do that, but it wasn't ever documented at all.
So we have a guy who's kind of a bad guy, and he does some shady things, but he doesn't commit major felonies. And then in 1979, boom, off we go. Cross-country crime spree, huge felonies, and he doesn't stop, because when he gets out in 1980, it takes him 2 months, and he's right back in it again.
Can't help himself.
Who can explain that? How do you explain that? From nothing to everything.
He just has a penchant for it. I think adrenaline was part of it. Not just the money seeking, but I think the adrenaline involved with getting the money. was a piece of this.
Then why didn't he need adrenaline in the 1970s?
That's a good question. Or maybe that was wiped away.
Yeah. I mean, being rich is boring for him, probably. Where's the hustle? I don't know.
Yes, the thrill of the chase.
Like he either had a perfect record of discretion through the 70s, which is why we're not seeing his name pop up hardly ever, or he had come into a large sum of money and somehow was temporarily satisfied with just lying low and living the good life. I don't know.
Drew, do you remember receiving that Wife 3 letter?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
What did you learn about Ted? Do you remember your initial reaction to that?
The relationship was so contentious, which I think I had heard before that it was before I read the letter, but it was a contentious relationship. I was first struck with the penmanship. For a guy like that was, did do 2 years of college. I knew he was intelligent because of his GT score from the Army, but the penmanship was just impeccable. The syntax of the writing and just the pretty cursive struck me. And then the tone was very, the angry tone really got me. And the choice of words, it's snarky. I would say snarky is such a good way of saying how that letter came off to me originally reading it. Best of luck. Enjoy you're now a liberated woman. It's just so snarky to me. It was just angry.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what issues and behaviors led up to his divorce, but the letter was simultaneously polite and kind of fair in terms of how he was dealing with the finances between he and his wife 3, but yeah, it was also passive aggressive and snarky, and he seemed to be just very matter of fact, but also you could read through and see the angst behind it, and what he was saying. What struck me is that almost the entire letter just dealt with issues about money. There was almost nothing, except for what you can, read between the lines about emotions or about feelings or about anything regarding the personal matters of the relationship. It was all about the division of money for the most part. And I don't know, he's very matter of fact and about everything, but yeah, it was an interesting letter for sure.
So that was, of course, the 1970s, and it's hard to find anything on Ted in the 1970s. And then Drew hits a home run with a letter in his own handwriting. So that was pretty nice to have.
That was a fluke.
1973, was it?
Yeah, 73.
March?
I think it was April 3rd.
Good one, Ian. I think believe he's right.
Only because I wrote it down. I didn't remember.
Yeah, that's right. He dated it like a military guy would.
Yeah.
That's the military format, the way he wrote it.
3 April or something, yeah.
My theory, and you don't have to agree, is Ted was using an alias in the 1970s. If that is true.
I would believe it.
Would that have been his doing or their doing?
I would say his, because he admits to using an alias in Ramparts.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, yeah, he would have known how to, most likely. I mean, he had pretty advanced CIA training. I mean, disguising his identity was kind of in his wheelhouse. So if he didn't want to be found, he probably knew ways on how to keep out of the spotlight, I would suspect.
But there are always rumors that he was never completely let go by the CIA. So if on paper or, officially, they cut him loose in the late 60s, but actually, kept him close in the 1970s, could that explain the alias?
I mean, if they kept him on, I mean, that would certainly explain how he could have achieved some level of protection and anonymity, because he'd have, a sector of the U.S. government on his side to help make that possible. And I think an alias is definitely the easiest, simplest, and most obvious explanation. I mean, how else could you avoid having your name crop up in public records from such a broad time period? You think we would have found something by that point. Yeah, or if he was, not wanting to be found by the CIA. I mean, the CIA, you think, could find you no matter what, though. I mean, how far could you really run from?
Good point.
Somebody that specializes in finding people.
Right. You have one job. Yeah.
They'll find you. They will find you.
They will find you.
This 1975 truck accident could be more interesting than it appears on paper. 75 and Ted is driving almost certainly for Consolidated Freightways. He's coming from the direction of Rockford, Illinois, back to Chicago, and Rockford had a Consolidated Freightways terminal. So did Chicago. It looks like he's back and forth between the two. But he had an accident along the way, and this could be the turning point in Ted's life. This could be where he goes to Pittsburgh, or at least where he leaves Chicago, because at some point between the accident and 1979, he ends up in Pittsburgh. So did he get fired after this truck accident and take off to Pittsburgh?
That makes sense.
Maybe that would explain the sudden need for a change, and that's where we found his name, is this police report from the accident. And I mean, if he had been lying low and using an alias and keeping low profile up until that point, and suddenly his name's out there, maybe he realized, shoot, I'm traceable. I better skip town and kind of start fresh somewhere. That's another possibility. But I mean, it's not like he's moving to Mexico or something. He's moving to another U.S. state. So, I mean, it
appears to be his final legitimate job. I mean, he certainly doesn't have a job in the 80s. I don't know about the 90s, but he was in his 60s. So something happened about 75. He's holding down a job. I don't know if he's drinking or not. He wasn't drunk when the truck accident happened, but he's a complete slob in the 1980s with no money and no job. I mean, he completely fell apart. Is that mental health, mental illness? What happened to the guy?
Maybe that accident was his last straw, and that itch just became overwhelming for him to do something a little more exciting, perhaps. And that just led down a rabbit hole of bad behavior and sloppy behavior and getting into trouble and just becoming kind of a mess of a person on and off.
Yeah, I think he was freelancing. The 75 makes a lot of sense that just began a time of freelancing and take what work you can get. Because I think the truck driving company is only going to take so many accidents or whatever to your liability and the insurance cost and the payouts. You're not doing enough for them to make it worth it. And there's no way that he didn't have other things against him, even if they weren't officially documented. They probably knew he was some form of trouble for them. So they probably just cut him loose.
And what is the nature of the 79 crime spree? This would be the big cross-country crime where he had done nothing wrong for a decade, and then he just comes out guns blazing and a coast-to-coast semi-truck crime spree. Is that a mob job?
It sounds like it. There was proven incarceration where he gets out and he just goes right back to old habits, but we can't find that. So I don't know what would cause him to go into neutral and then all of a sudden just go crazy and just go coast to coast with it all that he did. So maybe he is not in the States and comes back and opens up this crime spree. I mean, we just don't know.
So Frank, Ted's friend from Schaefer's Lounge, he remembers some things from this time, and we're trying to figure out when Ted arrived in Pittsburgh. And Frank remembers Bobby Slepsky sold that bar in 1977 to Jerry Schaefer. And he says Ted was not in the bar when Bobby Slepsky owned it. And that was up to 1977. So Ted arrived after 1977. But Frank also remembers the stolen whiskey trailer behind the supermarket. That's 79. So maybe we've narrowed down Ted. And now Ted is, if this is a mob job, which it almost certainly is, Ted is already working for the crime family in 1979. He wasn't there in 77. Does that mean he arrived in 78? Because he needed time to assimilate with the crime family if this is where he got in with them.
Makes sense, because like you say, it would take a little time to assimilate. I mean, to have them have some level of trust with you because they're doing something illegal and they don't want you to rat them out and go up the food chain. And now we got you. If you don't give up your boss, we're going to throw the book at you.
Yeah.
So they got to trust him.
If you had to put some money on it, was that trailer the 79 crime spree trailer, or was he stealing trailers every time the phone rang?
The latter.
I mean, I tend to think he was doing some kind of job. I'm not sure if it was a trailer every time, but it seems like trucking was his specialty at this point, and probably what they used him for most, I would expect.
So you do or do not think that the 79 crime spree whiskey trailer and Frank's memory of a whiskey trailer, he doesn't remember a year, they are or are not the same trailer?
That's a tough one.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, because the spree could have just been one single series of events and a much larger series of events of him doing transport-related crimes. So it could have happened before or after that, or it could have fallen right in the middle. And since we don't have a date on the whiskey trailer sighting, it's hard to say where it falls.
What was the date on the fish and meat?
Oh,
Yeah.
The fish and meat date, I don't remember, because that had to be refrigerated, obviously.
Yeah,
So that's a different trailer because it had to be refrigerated.
it was summer of 79, I believe. He's taking the whiskey to Albuquerque, doesn't show up, and then nothing happens. And the next thing you know, he turns himself in New York. What? I mean, Pittsburgh is kind of on the way to New York from Albuquerque, depending on how.
Yeah, that's strange.
So it could be. It just could be. What I'm trying to figure out is that, Frank says the phone rang all the time, and I'm wondering if Ted took off to steal a trailer every time that happened, or if this is a special occasion. I'm starting to think it happened a lot.
Oh, yeah. It must have. If he did it once, if he did it once and got away with it, he's not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just his new way of making money.
Yeah.
Specifically, where did those loads go? In the main episode, we kind of and ha about that. But I mean, honestly, let's talk it out. If you're going to steal a semi-trailer full of goods and you need to get rid of it, you are what? Selling it to a mob-connected supermarket guy? Or how?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
That's common?
Yes. Blunt. Yes. If I told you, a friend of mine calls me 2 years before we know about any mob connections with Braden, 2 years before we find it, and he's living in Boston and calls me. And I've been talking to this guy about hardly any since high school, and high school's in the rearview mirror for me. And he says, your guy is with the mob. I'm telling you, Drew. I work in Boston, and that's how it works here. If your guy, he was specifically talking about the fish and meat. He goes, if he drove that over interstate lines into the New England area, there's no way he wasn't doing it for the mafia, because if they found out you were taking stolen goods across their state lines into their territory and they found out about it, they were going to do away with you. And he called it 2 years before we even knew, just by living in Boston. Didn't grow up there. He grew up here where I am in the Houston area. But when he moved to Boston, he, heard all the stories and knew how it worked. And he said, your guy had to be mafia to get over state lines with stolen goods in a trailer. He goes, there's no doubt. And sure enough, he was right.
And he's selling it to a mob-connected supermarket guy.
Yes, that's how it worked.
Quantities that large, I would think. I mean, we're dealing with large volumes of goods here. I mean, meat, cantaloupe,
they control
booze.
it all.
Probably a distributor, right? Like a liquor distributor, a produce distributor, a meat distributor, someone that's connected, but can handle that amount of volume, and it's just surplus stock for them at that point, right? I mean, not surplus. I mean, they're probably buying it at a discount, I'm sure, but. And I would think a distributor.
Well, we can't say it because surviving family will sue the doors off the place. But Drew, can you think of the name I'm thinking of?
For
the mob-connected supermarket guy?
You have one?
Oh, yeah. Drew knows it, too. I don't know if he's going to make the connection or not.
Supermarket guy.
Yep.
I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, I'll tell you this. He owned a trucking company because it was a requirement for him owning a supermarket chain. Northeast Ohio. I'll say it and beep it.
Oh, no, I didn't know that about them.
Yep. He owned...
But I thought that was all frozen goods.
Well, guess what? Ted had a reefer truck. He was frozen beef and fish.
Mm.
Yeah, we knew the fish and meat obviously was refrigerated. So, and maybe that explains the connection to him in the street in Niles.
And the reason owned that trucking company was because it was a necessity to facilitate the fact he owned a supermarket chain in the area.
The Sopranos of Ohio. I think they were more like had a bigger terminal in Youngstown or something, right? Then did not, and Niles was just a smaller little offshoot.
You're right. I think the whole thing was based out of Girard, which is just another town outside of Youngstown, like Niles. But yeah.
Okay, maybe that's
interesting.
Nominally Youngstown.
Unfortunately, we can't talk it out because nothing can be proven, and there's a lot of families still alive.
Yeah, I like that connection. Yeah. I have a picture somewhere of one of the trucks.
And ironically, I've contacted that family, and they won't talk to us, which is not abnormal. Most people won't talk to us about Ted, but
yeah.
The Detroit liquor distributor who loaded Ted with the whiskey to be taken to Albuquerque, he knew the people who worked there. How? I don't know. It's in the court documents. It just says they were, I don't want to say associated, but they knew each other. A couple of people. So I have two names from this Detroit liquor distributor. They are both in their 70s. They are plenty young and spry. They're in good shape. I sent them nice handwritten letters, phone calls, and they will not reply. Again, it's not unusual, but this happened in 1979. Why won't you answer my questions about a crime that happened a lifetime ago? I don't get it.
That doesn't make sense. But that's what I've experienced with this all along.
Yeah.
People that really should have nothing to hide. It's been many decades. No one's going to come knocking at your door at night, and they just don't say a word.
So, I mean, we have a redacted jail card. So people, stuff behind the scenes was going on. Did someone tell these people not to talk, and all these years later they stick with it?
They almost had to, because just out of the sheer numbers, 1 out of 50 is going to talk. I mean, it was just a fluke for me that the stepdaughter talked to me once, and it's only because I knew something she didn't know that really blew her mind. And that's the only reason she, I caught her on a rare day, because I had been trying to get her for 6 months, very politely, not bugging, not being overly, hey, I was being very polite and very hands-off and unstalkerish, if you will, and finally got her attention with one line. And then after that, she goes quiet again.
Yeah, this is the strangest thing I've ever been a part of.
That's how it goes. Yeah. One lady I contacted literally got angry. I mean, she was in Pennsylvania. I don't remember. She had some connection to the truck stop we know where wife 3 worked, and knew wife 3 from the truck stop. And I found her, and she was literally angry. I mean, angry. And I was just like, okay, sorry. I'll go away now.
That's just not a normal, rational reaction.
It's not. I mean, even just, no, I don't want to talk about it would be a little more than the anger this woman displayed. And it's very polite, extremely polite.
So Ted does his 1979 crime spree out of the blue, having never done anything like that before in his life. He is about 50 years old. And he doesn't get caught. He turns himself in. Months go by between not delivering the whiskey to Albuquerque and turning himself in New York. And we don't know why he turned himself in. They didn't catch him. He turned himself in. And like I said, months went by. So was there communication? Were they talking? Was there a deal in place? Again, we're talking about a deal, and whose idea was the deal? Was it Ted's idea? Was it their idea? Was there no deal? I don't know, but he ended up with a
deal or no deal.
Yeah, he ended up with a really light sentence.
I couldn't resist.
8 months in a prison camp after getting sentenced to 2 years. He serves 8 months in a camp without offense. So was that all brokered before he turned himself in?
Sounds like it.
Unreal.
Another thought I had, which probably not the case, but just another, because I've been so perplexed by why he would turn himself in. And I mean, one thing, if you're caught in some hot water, turning yourself in as a way to escape those people that you're trying to hide from. So, I mean, he's dealing with very dangerous people, big organizations. I mean, that could have also been a reason, but I don't know. Then they'd just be waiting for him when he gets out too. So it does seem strange to just turn yourself in when you don't have to, unless you know that you're about to get caught anyway. But yeah, brokering a deal ahead of time, going in knowing that, it's going to be light. I mean, that could be too.
Especially when you consider what he did when he got out. I mean, what was it, November 24th, 1981, and is when he's released from that little camp. And then in early February of 82, so just over 2 months, and he's doing the shop and save robbery, Erie County, Ohio Turnpike stuff. So he learned no lesson. It was right back into it.
It's just, again, odd timing and who is he trying to please? He's all about himself. Any decisions he makes is self-serving. I mean, he's whatever puts money in his pocket is what he's going to do. But it seems like somebody out there still has tabs on him is the feeling I get. That some higher authority is letting him kind of run around in the sandbox to some degree, unless it gets too bad. They want to know where he is, but they allow him to do certain things.
Yeah, I mean, he was fed and housed and took a nice vacation and then got right back in the game. I don't know. I mean, if that's the worst consequences he could expect is a couple years in a prison camp, then, I mean, why not take the risk and keep going with it,
Yeah, why not? I mean, you get free food for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the mafia guys. They would all, congregate, the ones that got sent to prison, and they'd make a pretty nice life there. There were, these scenes in some of these movies where they're cooking up spaghetti in the cells, and they're all having a good time, and they get wine in there given to them. I don't know if they're bribing the guards, but they're living a pretty good life in prison.
What do we think about Gato in this circumstance? Gato gets out of prison in 1976. Ted maybe arrives in Pittsburgh 78-ish, 79. He's doing this crime spree. When he gets out in 81, he's immediately chummy with Gato and doing the shop and save job. So when did they meet?
I mean, they might have been running around the same circles before Ted turned himself in. I mean, they could have known each other from back then.
Back when, though?
Perhaps.
Gato was locked up 59 to 76.
76? Well, I mean, if Ted came...
I mean, are you saying like for a year they knew each other? Or?
Yeah, if Ted came to Pittsburgh in 78, then they might have... And, Ted was involved in crime. Gato was involved in crime.
Or a prison connection.
Oh,
I can't find Ted in a state prison, though, and that's where Gato always was.
But maybe somebody knew him. One guy knew a guy that served with him or got out, knew him for a while in prison. Gato and got out and knew him.
Okay, you know what? Okay, that's a good point.
It's kind of a mafia-ish thing.
Yep. Yeah. So
find Joseph Gato, he'll have work for you.
Yeah, because they were operating out of prison. I mean, that's how they do it.
I give it a 50-50 chance that Ted and Gato were living together across the street from Schaefer's Lounge in 1981-82. So is it possible that Ted got out of prison, needed a place to stay, and someone in prison hooked him up with Gato, and that's how they became roommates, and they did only know each other for 2 months before the shop and save thing?
I could see that. With him, I could see it.
Okay.
Yeah. With him, I could see it. Knowing his background that we do, that could be something he would do. Wouldn't bother him a bit.
Oh, Mid-America Inn. Should we talk about that?
I know it comes from the letter.
Well, yeah. So in the letter, Ted says that he will be moving to the Mid-America Motor Inn, which, I mean, it sure doesn't look cheap. I don't know how much. I could not find how much it costs, but
all glass.
Was it a motel or a hotel? And like, what's the difference? I mean, a hotel, I think of multi-floors. I mean, a hotel with like at least 3-4 floors and the door opens up to a hallway, whereas most motels back then would you just open up the door to the outside or a walkway.
Oh, this one had a spacious lobby, I'm pretty sure. There's a photo of it from around that time. That
I think you found it, or the street that it was on in Chicago. Or he says what street. I think he gives the location in the letter, doesn't he?
79th, I think. 79th.
Yeah, 79th Street.
Town line of Burbank and Oakland.
I don't know if that's a good area of town or not. I don't know Chicago. I really don't. I know New York City pretty well, but not Chicago.
It was all glass. Was it considered a motel or a hotel? I don't know. It was called Mid-America Motor Inn, and here's what they did.
Motor Inn.
They had a restaurant. I don't know if you could get room service or not. I can't find that. You would think you probably could, right? If there's a restaurant right in there. And they had a lounge singer and a piano guy, and they would have entertainment that they'd bring in. So this was a whole venue.
That was kind of the thing back then, though.
If you're Ted...
I think a lot of those did.
Yep. If you're Ted, you can eat, you can drink, you can get your entertainment, and you don't have to drive. It's just all...
Probably a woman.
Right. That's what I'm thinking, too. And it's all right there. It was pretty nice. It's not like Motel 6.
Didn't you find an old postcard, or I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Because it's long gone, right? It's long torn down.
That's correct.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that is true. Anybody with like a newspapers.com subscription, you can find a lot of stuff on the goings on at the old Mid-America Motor Inn. Looked like a cool place. You don't have that anymore. You don't have these unique lodging joints, right? It's all cookie cutter.
No, they kind of went away.
Cheap plastic, yeah.
Extended stay now is a thing, and Airbnb, of course. And it's different.
Right. Okay, so that's what episode 8 was kind of about. What did episode 8 teach you about Ted Braden?
Taught me that Ted loved to spend money. Episode 8 showed us that we don't know where all that money came from. It's unlikely it was all earned legitimately just because of the amount he was spending. Taught us that he had some woman problems, definitely. But he seems like at some point he gave an effort to live a fairly straightforward, clean life, you could say. And it showed us the beginning of a lot of the major crime stuff he got involved in, where that first started, what that may have been born of, and also showed us that the guy could hide himself if he wanted to, for the fact that his name does not pop up hardly ever for like 8 years. Yeah, that kind of summarizes a lot of it for me, I think.
It's the trajectory of him that I would come to expect from knowing about him from birth through World War II, through Vietnam, even Germany in the early 60s before Vietnam. It's the trajectory I would almost come to expect from him. Just always looking for money. I'm going back to a photograph of him and his mother, where his mother's still living in Toledo before she eventually relocates to California with her second husband and Ted's stepfather. And I just thinking of him visiting her at her home, and he's not the how you doing mom type. If he's going to see his mom, he's asking for money. That's Ted. Just like Ramparts, he walks into the offices at Donald Duncan and he hits him up for money. This is, if he even makes a trip somewhere, he's thinking about one thing and one thing only. Can I have some money? He was not shy about asking for it. He seemed to have no pride when it came to asking for money. I mean, obviously he would do anything to get it, including breaking many laws, but he would also just bluntly ask for it. Everything he does is in pursuit of money. Every visit, every phone call, every trip in a car, it's about money, money, money. I don't think he has any other interest. He does like women. That's why he was married 3 times. I think he had a need there. So, to have some appearance of a normal life, he was so self-conscious about his appearance, very fastidious, even as he was getting older, to look trim. He would be critical of people that were overweight or had some other physical abnormality he'd point out, kind of like in Ramparts. His whole life is about asking for money, finding money, stealing money, setting up a scheme to get money. At this point, it's all about money, even more than the adrenaline factor. His jumping days are over. There's probably still some thrill in if he gets caught or not, and if he gets let go. I think he still thinks he's operating under some kind of protection. You could have given him $1 million back then. It probably wouldn't have satisfied him for too long. It's just, he's just has this mindset of constantly making money without having a legitimate job. That's just what, drove his old counterpart from Vietnam crazy, because he knew how smart he was. If he had decided to, take up being an accountant or some, professional type job, or had some training or real estate or sales or engineering or anything that, he had such a good skill set, and from what we know, a pretty high IQ. So he could have made a really good living legitimately, but that did not appeal to him whatsoever.
That's Drew Beeson. The other guy is Ian Glover. I'm D. Raj. Tim Wallace will be back. He is on a water skiing holiday in Milwaukee. That was our episode 8 discussion. High five, everybody. Say goodbye.
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 See the files behind the series when you subscribe at youshouldnotknowthis.org.